Alright, so this is my Dynamark racing mower, and in this video I'm going to show you a bit about it and what makes it work. So to all the new people that may not be familiar with this, I started this build as a long time ago. But anyway, I got it when it was completely stock, pulled it out of a barn, and I pushed it down the road, got it from my neighbor. So anyway, it had a foot transaxle and the original 11 horsepower Briggs & Stratton, and I've done a lot of things to it since. So I originally started just with a pulley swap and a gas pedal, and went like that. Still had the governor and pretty much stock ride height and everything. Then the first thing I did was, besides the gas pedal, which is actually the same gas pedal that I still have now, but I lowered the seat. It had springs on the seat, so I moved the seat forward and down so that it stayed in the same place, just down. It could go back further, but it's pretty good where it is right now. So then the next thing that I did was some more gear ratios, swaps, and pulley swaps. But then what I did is I decided to move the transaxle forwards about 6 inches and put a live axle in it, and did 2 sprockets to the rear wheel on each side of the transaxle, and I cut the axles down so it's more of a transmission, less of a transaxle. And then I rode it like that for a while. And then I built these drop spindles. I don't know how much, it's probably maybe 4 inches lower now, but anyway, that gave me a lower stance in the front, and I put a bit more camber on it, and yeah, so it's better for driving and stuff. Still kind of sloppy in the bushings, but it's okay. So then, as you can see here, it's not got the most amount of ground clearance, but it's not terrible. I mean, it's okay. And then recently what I've done, if you've seen in a past video, I added caster to this. So basically I took out, I had welded the axle in first, so it didn't turn and stuff like a regular lawn tractor. So then what I did is I grinded the welds and then put a pipe wrench on the axle and turned it back to about 10 degrees of caster. So then I welded it back in solid and put in a shim behind it. So there you can see this was about touching there in that gap. So the whole axle has about 10 degrees of caster, which helps it with high speed stability. So the engine is pretty much completely stock as I got it, but right now it has a 12 horsepower Briggs & Stratton carburetor and intake. So it's the multi-piece rather than the one-piece carburetor. I don't know if that gains any power, but we'll say it does. And then I've got the throttle bypassing the governor completely, and it just goes to a sketchy piece of copper wire to the butterfly and a return spring. The exhaust is just some pipe, and then to a 90. I think that's 1.25 inches. Anyway, sounds pretty good. So I've been running this configuration without the governor for about 2 years, and I actually haven't changed the oil in that 2 years, which is probably not good, but the engine survives just fine. I mean, I don't, completely hold it to the wood in first gear, but anyway, it's holding together. People, they say it's not good, but what do they know? I don't know. Hood scoop I made functional because my friends called me out that it wasn't functional because I put it on when I was, when I was first made it because it was cool. But now it does something, maybe. Anyway. The steering is pretty much completely stock, so it has a little bit of play in it, but it's not terrible, I guess. So I'm running 13-inch tires on the front. These happen to be Goodyears. I got them off of a compressor. They were on a thing, but anyways, they're on these rims that I think were from Aaron's maybe. Anyway, the rear rims are actually the rims that I got those tires on, so I just swapped the rims. And these tires I got for the front of this originally. But I made my own hubs, so basically I have a 1-inch go-kart axle, live axle in this, and what I did is I took a hub from, like you'd weld a sprocket to it, but then I turned it down on a lathe and put it in this piece of pipe, which I then welded to the hub. But before that I put the entire rim on the lathe and bored it out to just over 1 inch. So it was a 3/4 inch rim with like insert bushings. So I basically drilled out the bushings. It was cast iron bushings that are pressed into the steel rim. But anyways, so that's how that works. It seems to work pretty good. I think from welding it or whatever, it's kind of warped, so they don't come off easily, so I welded these ears on it. So I just take and put a puller, 2-jaw puller on it, and it comes off. I only have to get it off maybe 1 inch, then it comes off the rest of the way. But that's also good, then they won't fall off when I'm driving. So the transmission in this thing is a rear engine rider style. So I believe this transmission was from a John Deere rear engine rider, only because the shifter that was on it when I got it was green. Not that that's very credible, but anyways, it's a 2-speed with reverse, and I don't know what brand it is, but I took it apart and the gears look good inside. So I've got the original pulley that's on it on the bottom, you can see down there, and then I think that's a 6-inch pulley, and then I've got a 5-inch pulley on the front, so it's just a bit overdriven, and then the gear ratio on the back. I think the transmission is like 2-to-1 and then 2.5-to-1 in second or something like that. Anyway, it works out. I had originally the brake was on the left side of this transmission and the sprocket was on the right side, but it just had a little Woodruff key in there, and that's a 3/8 or smaller shaft. And what I had done, I had welded a sprocket to the outside of the original sprocket that went on there, and it would just snap keyways, the little Woodruff keyways on that. And then I eventually, tried to weld it onto the shaft, but then that kept snapping. So then I upgraded to this side, where this is, I think this side's 3/8, that side might be half, or something like that, I can't remember. This was a couple years ago. But anyways, it's just mounted with some flat bar on the frame. And see, I originally had the hole on this side for the sprocket, but now it's on this side. So this thing works pretty good. Just made a shifter that goes to a lever that was originally for the foot transmission, which was a 3-speed with a high-low. This was the high-low. So reverse. For reverse, I need to grind this out a bit more because it doesn't quite go all the way, or I need to move the lever point for the transmission, but it's in the second first, and there's like neutrals in between gears, so you sometimes get caught in between them when you're shifting. But anyways, yeah. And all of that powers a 1-inch live axle with pillow block bearings. This isn't the lightest way of construction because I've got a giant plate on the bottom and angle iron, but it's pretty strong. And it goes through the axle, so I had to drill a hole in the frame. And for this side, if you remember the video, I made a brake setup. So I got the caliper from a go-kart caliper and bracket, and that was on sale. But then I was like, why would I bother buying a rotor when a sprocket is basically just a free rotor that I already had? So yeah, then this one's a 50 chain. I bought it by mistake a while ago when I needed 40 chain. But anyways, so then I just put a washer in between and spaced it out, and it works pretty good. The only thing I would consider doing is a solid linkage for the brake rather than a cable, because the cable isn't as strong. But it works. obviously the stock location for the battery was under the seat, but now there is a chain there. So it didn't really fit. I could have probably put it in sideways, but now it's in the middle here for, we'll call it, better weight distribution. But I like the weight distribution on this is pretty good, because the engine's up front and then I'm sitting on the back, so it's pretty balanced. Not like the go-kart where you're sitting at the back and the engine's at the back, so it understeers a lot. This almost has no understeer. Also, both tires are about the same size and traction level, so they're pretty good. So things that I would want to do in the future to this thing would be make a side bolster thing for the seat, so that when I'm going around a left corner, you're not trying to fall off all the time. And then I have a go-kart steering wheel that's a little bit smaller and not plastic, so that would look nicer and it would be a bit stronger. But I have actually, I never got on video, but I did flip this thing in a ditch last winter. I was drifting on the road, and when there was ice on the road, and well, because of the steering, the way I made it with adding the caster, it adjusted out. The way it adjusted was, so now I have less left turn and, significantly enough right turn. So I have less steering angle to the right, so I can't pull myself out of a hard drift. Well, that's what happened anyways. And then as soon as I got into the ditch, well, it kind of hit the hard snow in the ditch and then flipped. It stayed running, but then it stalled out. But it was completely fine. I just had to push it back. I think I had just a sore shoulder, but no damage was done to this. Now, I can't remember how, but for some reason it just worked out this way, that the right wheel sticks out further than the left wheel, possibly because well, that's exactly why, because the clearance here, I could come in maybe an eighth or something, or a quarter of an inch, but we'll just say that's meant for that, for making left turns and things. But anyway, if you know these machines, you might know that the clutch is on the left side and it looks homemade, but originally the clutch on these things was on the right side. So what I did, I moved it over to the left side, so you can see the bracket that it originally attached to. So I just made a rod that went across and some hangers so that the clutch is on the left side. Here's a good view of the underside. Obviously the pulley ratio that I have the stock clutch, which I should build a chain keeper for, or a belt keeper, because it always likes to slide off when I do like clutch kicks in the winter, or something like that. Not all the time, but some of the time. Alright, so that's been this walk around of my racing mower. In the next video I'm going to drive it around, and so stay tuned for that one, because this video is probably getting long by now. So in the next video I'll be racing around my yard and showing what it does. So for all the new subscribers that are interested in this thing, I can make more videos on it, because it's right here. I can just drive it around once in a while, and that's what I do. It's kind of loud, so I don't do it every day, but here I am Sunday morning, but it's pretty foggy out, so anyway, who cares. So that's it for this video. In the next one we'll be ripping it around, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching.